Hello, and welcome to my lecture, How I Record Lectures, or How to Get the Screen Recording into the Can. This lecture is in response to a student question. So, the course is being recorded in response to feedback from a student. The student pointed out a message, and he said this: "The topic I'd really like to see is how exactly you are recording lectures. Are you doing them in one shot? Are you gluing lectures from separate recorded pieces? Do you have a written script for whatever you're saying, and so on? Maybe I missed that part." Well, in my opinion, this is great feedback. Udemy instructors really appreciate this kind of feedback. This is telling me exactly what I need to do for my course, and this lecture is in response to that. So I don't think the student missed the part. I think I missed the part by not including it in the course in the first place, so I'm going to try and address that issue now. Let me begin in the beginning. It all begins with an outline. And in fact, the outline for a lecture comes after the outline for the entire course exists. I use a simple text file to outline my courses. When I'm first throwing the ideas together, I just find that a text file and moving ideas around works great. And I'm going to show you one of those text files at the end of this slide. Section and lecture titles come from my text file directly into Udemy as the curriculum. So I outline and set up section and lecture titles in my text file and then directly use them to create my curriculum. Now, if this is going to be a slide-based presentation, I use PowerPoint to organize my lectures into slides. I create a set of slides with a title on each slide. So there I've got my major points. I'm going to have a slide on this major point, and then I use the individual bullet items as the talking points within the slide. So I find PowerPoint to be a great way to outline. So it seems to proceed this way. From the text file into the Udemy course curriculum, then I break it into lectures, which are individual PowerPoint files. Then the individual slides are broken from that, and then the talking points that are broken down into bullets within each slide. Before going any further, I wanted to show you the text editor in which I'm editing a text version of my outlines. It's a file called Udemy class idea.txt, and it's just a text file in which I'm accumulating class ideas. The first thing here is an outline for a Udemy marketing course, which I actually never recorded. Maybe I will someday. But you can see that the major section breaks are not indented. The lecture titles are, so I can see the sections and titles. And this goes directly into Udemy as the curriculum. This is the layout for a course. Just down below it here is an outline for a lecture. Here I just have the titles for slides. This is information that I want to cover. Next, here I have a list of topics that I'm thinking of developing courses for. And then after that, here's a complete outline for my Excel course, which I did record and release. It shows you, here in this case, each of the lectures is numbered, and I have little talking points or slide possibilities or screencast options down below. It just keeps on going. Here's a layout for a WordPress course that I never recorded, where I have section titles and lecture titles. So you just lay it out all in text. It's easy to manipulate lines, to change the titles of things, to move things around until you get it more or less right, and then it goes straight into Udemy. And in fact, I even went so far as to record and prioritize various things that I was working on and enhancements that I wanted to make to my existing courses and prioritize those. And then finally, it ends with the latest course that I'm recording, where I have used a blank space to indicate a section header. So here's step 0, preparing to publish, as the section header. And then in it, here are the lectures, and I even indented the sub-items or potential PowerPoint screen titles for lectures within that topic. So this is the way I outline things in text. And the outline doesn't last very long. It lasts about long enough for me to transfer this over to Udemy as the curriculum for the upcoming course. But this is the area where I can also play with ideas. You should outline your course to make sure that you have enough to say on it before you start creating it. Have a complete outline laid out. Get your talking points from beginning to end. What are you going to say in this course? And I find it easy to do in a text file. In response to the question, do I script what I'm saying? Well, I wouldn't say that I never use a script, but it's pretty close. The only time I script what I'm going to say is during promotional videos. And in such scripted dialogues, I'm pretty much accompanied by slides that contain the words that I'm saying. So the words I'm saying go across the screen as I'm saying them in promotional videos sometimes. This is the only time I use a script. And the only time that I can think of that it's literally okay to read the PowerPoint bullets on the slide. I do use PowerPoint slides to prompt me through my dialogue, though. So we're going to look at using presentation slides as a prompt. I love having lectures with slides because the titles and the bullet items prompt me through my talking points. I know exactly what I need to discuss, and I can even somewhat anticipate what's coming up next because, after all, I did just a little while ago create these lecture slides. And all I need to do, if I have decent slides, is to paraphrase each bullet and elaborate upon it and do things in sequence. So it's a really convenient way to present a lecture. You should try not to be surprised by the next talking point or if there's an error in the next bullet that comes up. Just talk right on through it or pause and fix it up in post-production. The big downside to creating slides is the amount of time that it takes to create the presentation slides. It takes probably more time to create the slides than it does to record them and then do the post-production on the recording. So this is taking a long time to do this particular lecture. It takes far less time to just prepare and do a screencast recording of leading somebody through a demonstration of something. So I want to talk about the slide editing process before leaving slides. Be sure to edit your slides for spelling and grammatical errors. It's kind of embarrassing and it's a little shocking as you're bringing up the talking points and you find an error in your talking point. Most of the time I just talk right over it and it stays in the recording. During the process of writing, revising, and editing, this is another good reason to do it, you're going to be memorizing the flow of your presentation. You'll also be preparing to anticipate points to emphasize. So if you have hot points that you really want to talk about, well, you'll know where they're coming in the presentation. You'll be able to elaborate on them. And you'll be able to avoid being surprised by the next content that comes onto the screen. That's always a little embarrassing. But then again, it usually just results in a pause, and then you edit that out in post-production. Don't record too long after preparing your slides. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of pauses and a lot of surprises to have to edit out in post-production, and that just makes the recording process a lot longer. So what about screencasts? I've got to admit I pretty much wing it, but I will say this about doing screencasts. I always demonstrate things that I know like the back of my hand, so I'm not surprised, or I don't have any problem walking people through using something that I've done hundreds of times. Now, practice your lecture. You should practice your lecture before you're recording, not only so that you can streamline the process that you're working on. Notice if you walk through it, you're going to be able to set up files and you're going to be able to set up applications to bring them up and stuff like that. Whatever you've got to do your lecture. But you're also optimizing or setting up the recording process. You know where the highs and lows are going to be and you're preparing for that. So you're learning all of these things as you practice your lecture. Note that practice is important for both slide and screencast-based lectures. Don't practice too much, though. You don't want to lose a really good presentation of your lecture stuff because you weren't recording at the time. And remember, if you do mess up a recording or something, you can always clean it up or throw it away. As long as it isn't too imperfect, you can pretty much save a recording. Okay? Practicing can quite often produce artifacts along the way that you need to clean up before you record again. For instance, if you're showing how to create a file or how to create let's say a book cover for a course, well, once you get done showing them how to do it, the book cover is going to exist, so you have to delete it before you can go back and show them how to create it again. Anyway, I'm just pointing out, make sure you clean up so you don't surprise yourself with some of these artifacts of the fact that you're doing the process a second or third time by the time you're recording it. And sometimes you save snapshots of what you're doing along the way so that you can fast forward to known good points in what you're demonstrating. For instance, if you have a lengthy cleanup process which involves repeating the same steps over and over again, you might want to save a snapshot so that you can open a file that already has what you're going to demonstrate applied to it so they don't have to sit there for an hour and watch you do something tedious. Advice on your presentation style. Demonstrate enthusiasm for the topic that you're teaching. It's okay to over-articulate or over-emphasize things. If you feel just a little bit goofy in your presentation, you're probably hitting it just right. Don't get too goofy, but try to punch it up. Don't just talk in a monotone. Have inflections to your voice. Have ups and downs. Have high points and low points. Speak at a steady pace as if you were explaining something to a friend. I love that aspect of doing presentations. It feels like you're just sitting there with a long friend and you're just explaining how things are working. Don't just read the bullet items, which is what I just did. Paraphrase them and elaborate on them. Find other talking points that you can apply to the particular bullet item. It gets boring hearing somebody or watching them read bullet items over and over again. I mean, you may as well not have a lecture. I can read bullet items without somebody reading them to me. Okay, recording and post-production. I lean heavily on post-production during the recordings. That's because I make a lot of mistakes. And if I make a mistake, and sometimes many in a row, I just pause and start again until I get it right. Then I keep on going until I make my next mistake, and so on. Sometimes I even press the back arrow on the keyboard to back up several talking points during a PowerPoint presentation so that I can do them again. This can all be done and you can work it all out in post-production. I love the fact that post-production works and that this isn't live. All of this, including throat clearing and the cat disturbing me. Yes, I'm a cat owner, or the cat owns me, so sometimes there are interruptions during recording. They're all removed during post-production. Now, another post-production consideration occurs when you're recording both slides and screencasts for a lecture. In that case, how do you glue things together? And I want to talk about that next. Gluing things together. When switching from presentation slides to screencasts and a screencast demonstration and back and forth, you have two options, really. You can stop recording and produce multiple takes, or you can just keep on going and remove the unwanted material in post-production. I prefer the latter. I prefer to just keep on going and remove the unwanted stuff in post-production. In both instances, it's easy to splice scenes together in post-production. We've gone through and done a lot of Camtasia video editor lessons, so you know this is the fact. And just go back to those and watch them to see how post-production works. We're also going to do a little post-production lecture after this. You can even add transition effects if the cut seems too abrupt. You can do that in post-production. So post-production is great. Fix all evils in post-production. And speaking of post-production, I'm going to see you again in the next lecture where we're going to do post-production on the slides I just recorded.